The world watched in horror, transfixed by the relentless news coverage that dominated headlines and conversations everywhere. In late 2023, Gaza was plunged into chaos, its skyline transformed by plumes of smoke and the thunder of explosions echoing through the night. Relentless images of devastation filled our screens, entire neighborhoods flattened, homes, hospitals, and schools reduced to rubble in a matter of moments. The human cost was staggering. Thousands of civilians, many of them children, lost their lives. Families were torn apart, and communities were left to mourn in the shadow of destruction. Each day brought new reports of airstrikes and rocket fire, deepening the humanitarian catastrophe and leaving survivors in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. Food, water, and medicine became desperately scarce, turning survival into a daily struggle. Long lines for basic necessities became a grim routine, as aid convoys struggled to reach those in need. Displaced families crowded into makeshift shelters, their faces marked by trauma and exhaustion. Privacy and comfort vanished, replaced by uncertainty and fear for the future. International calls for ceasefires often felt hollow, drowned out by the sounds of war. Statements of concern echoed in diplomatic halls, but on the ground, the violence rarely paused. The conflict became a daily battle for survival, pushing Gaza's population to the very brink. Families fled through shattered streets, clutching what little they could carry. Children grew up knowing only violence, their innocence shattered by the constant threat. Their drawings told stories of war, and their laughter was replaced by silence and fear. In Israel, communities lived under the anxiety of rocket alerts, their safety always uncertain. Sirens sent families rushing to shelters, hearts pounding with every warning. The trauma was shared, but the circumstances were vastly different. Both sides endured sleepless nights, but the scale and intensity of suffering in Gaza was overwhelming. The conflict deepened mistrust, making peace seem like a distant dream. Decades of failed negotiations and broken promises fueled anger and despair. As the suffering mounted, the world grew desperate for a solution. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, demanding action and an end to the bloodshed. Traditional diplomacy had failed. A bold, new approach was needed. The usual channels offered little hope, and frustration grew among those seeking change. The region stood at the edge of an abyss, demanding an audacious move toward peace. Only by confronting the roots of the conflict and embracing new ideas could hope begin to return to Gaza and beyond. Amid a sea of desperation and uncertainty, Sharm El-Sheikh emerged as the world's last best hope, a beacon shining through the darkness of conflict and despair. The Egyptian resort city, long a crossroads of diplomacy and dialogue, was chosen for its unique neutrality and its history of bringing adversaries together. Egypt, under the leadership of President El-Sisi, positioned itself as the indispensable mediator, leveraging its regional influence and reputation for stability. Leaders and diplomats from every corner of the globe gathered here, their presence alone signaling the extraordinary gravity and urgency of the moment. The United States, key Arab nations, Turkey, and Indonesia all took prominent roles, each bringing their own perspectives and hopes for a lasting solution. This summit was about more than just talks. It was about forging a true global consensus. The violence had to end, not just temporarily, but permanently for the sake of future generations. Tension and cautious optimism filled the air as negotiations began, with every word and gesture carrying immense weight and consequence. For Palestinians, the talks represented a chance for long-awaited freedom from occupation. For Israelis, the hope for lasting security and peace within their borders. The world watched with bated breath, hoping for a breakthrough that would finally end the nightmare of violence and uncertainty that had gripped the region for decades. Unlike past efforts, Sharm El-Sheikh united a broad and unprecedented coalition, creating unique diplomatic pressure and a rare sense of shared purpose. The tranquil setting of the resort stood in stark contrast to the chaos of war elsewhere, a silent promise of peace and a reminder of what was at stake. The stakes had never been higher, and the world's hopes rested on the shoulders of those gathered in this room. The summit's success depended on each nation's unique role. Egypt acted as the master facilitator, bridging divides and brokering details. Qatar, with its financial power, pledged billions for Gaza's reconstruction and future stability. Turkey used its influence to unify Palestinian factions and balance U.S. dominance. Indonesia brought moral authority, ensuring civilian protections and a path to self-determination. The United States provided security guarantees for Israel, making peace more palatable. Each nation's leverage was essential, creating a framework where compromise became possible. Together, they formed a coalition strong enough to push for real change. Just as talks settled, a dramatic twist: former US President Donald Trump arrived. His presence, unplanned and polarizing, sent shockwaves through the summit. Supporters saw him as a deal-maker. Critics feared disruption. The media frenzy was immediate, but official negotiators doubled down, determined to succeed. Notably absent were Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and any Iranian officials, each for strategic reasons. Iran denounced the summit, seeing it as a US-led effort to sideline its influence. Trump's presence became a sideshow, adding urgency but little substance. In the end, traditional diplomacy prevailed, but the drama underscored the summit's high stakes. After days of intense, round-the-clock negotiations, a historic breakthrough was finally announced to the world: the Sharm El-Sheikh Declaration. The atmosphere was electric, as leaders from across the globe gathered in a rare display of unity and determination. The agreement declared a permanent, internationally monitored ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian factions in Gaza, marking a turning point after years of conflict and failed talks. For the first time, both sides committed to laying down arms under the watchful eyes of the world. Central to the deal was a comprehensive exchange of hostages and prisoners, meticulously overseen by the Red Cross and Egyptian mediators. This unprecedented step aimed to heal deep wounds and restore trust between communities. The first exchanges, broadcast live to millions, became powerful symbols of hope and reconciliation. Families on both sides, long separated by war, were finally reunited in scenes of overwhelming emotion. The declaration also established a robust multinational peacekeeping force along Gaza's borders, operating under a UN mandate. Their presence was designed to ensure security, prevent future escalations, and build confidence among all parties. With the reopening of border crossings, the long-standing blockade was lifted. For the people of Gaza, this meant not only the arrival of much-needed goods and humanitarian aid, but also a renewed sense of hope and opportunity for rebuilding shattered lives. The agreement further committed all parties to a new round of political negotiations, with the ultimate goal of achieving a lasting two-state solution. This renewed diplomatic effort was seen as essential for addressing the root causes of the conflict. It was an ambitious and far-reaching plan, requiring immense political will, courage, and sustained international support. The world's eyes were now on the leaders to deliver on their promises. The negotiators openly acknowledged the enormous challenges that still lay ahead, but a wave of hope and cautious optimism swept across the region, inspiring millions. For the first time in many years, the possibility of ending the cycle of violence felt real. People dared to dream of a future defined by peace, not war. The war was finally over, yet the even greater challenge of building a just and lasting peace had only just begun. Communities now faced the task of healing, rebuilding, and forging new relationships. The world watched, holding its breath, united in hope that this declaration would truly mark the dawn of a new era. Even as celebrations erupted, skepticism and rivalry surfaced. Russia questioned the deal's balance, warning it favored US interests and lacked true international legitimacy. Iran condemned the declaration, vowing to support factions that rejected the agreement. Tehran's opposition threatened to undermine the fragile peace. Meanwhile, China seized the moment, offering massive investment to rebuild Gaza as part of its global strategy. This move gave China a strategic foothold, casting itself as a constructive partner. The peace was immediately drawn into global competition: US as broker, Russia as critic, China as builder. The future of Gaza would now be shaped by both local actors and global giants. As the dust settled, a question lingered: is this peace enduring, or just a fleeting truce? The agreement, though historic, rests on a fragile foundation. Decades of hatred and unresolved issues, like Jerusalem and refugees, remain. Success depends on leaders shifting from confrontation to compromise. Hardliners and regional spoilers threaten to reignite conflict. Gaza's reconstruction could bring prosperity, or new dependencies and rivalries. True peace requires justice, dignity, and a real path to Palestinian self-determination. Lasting security for Israel hinges on a just resolution for its neighbors. The future will be shaped not in conference halls, but in the daily lives of ordinary people. The Sharm El-Sheikh Declaration opened a door. Whether leaders and people walk through it remains the question of our time.